All right, let's dive right in. You clicked on this video because the title probably hit something deep inside of you, right? You've heard about the grandeur of the universe, the vastness of space, the infinite complexity of life itself. And when we talk about God, whether you believe in God as a being, a force, or an idea, we're talking about the ultimate creator, right? God made everything. Or did he? Is there actually something out there that's bigger than what God created? Honestly, it's kind of wild to even ask that question. It almost feels wrong, doesn't it? But I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to see things in a way that might completely change how you think about existence. So, let's start with the obvious. What's the biggest thing we can think of? The universe. You and I, we're tiny specks in this vast, expanding cosmos. And when I say vast, it's not like driving from one city to another. We're talking about distances that make your brain glitch. Light, the fastest thing we know, takes billions of years to cross the universe. And even that might not cover it all. But here's where it gets interesting. No matter how massive the universe is, it's still within the realm of creation. It's still a thing, it's got limits, even if those limits are beyond our understanding. So could there be something bigger than the universe? Bigger than everything we can see, touch, or even imagine? Now here's where it gets wild. What if the biggest thing isn't a thing at all? What if it's not something you can measure or observe? You see, the universe, as mind-blowing as it is still bound by laws, gravity, time, space. But what about the things that aren't bound by those laws? Like, for example, ideas. Can they be bigger than the universe? Think about it, an idea doesn't exist physically, doesn't take up space, and yet it can change everything. It's not confined to one moment in time or one place in space. An idea can spread across generations, reshape civilizations, and even, if you think about it, create entire new worlds.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But let's go deeper. What if there's something even more fundamental than ideas? And this is where it gets tricky. I'm talking about the power of consciousness. You, sitting there watching this video, you're not just a collection of atoms and molecules. You're aware. You're experiencing this moment. Consciousness is something that science still struggles to explain. We can measure brain activity, but we can't measure awareness. We can't define what it means to be truly awake inside your own mind. And here's the kicker: some people believe consciousness isn't just a byproduct of physical processes. They think it's something that exists beyond the material world. Could consciousness be bigger than the universe? Bigger than anything God created? You might be thinking, wait, isn't God the source of consciousness? Isn't God the ultimate awareness? And yeah, for many people, that's true. But here's the thing: what if your consciousness, your ability to be aware of yourself, to think, to feel, isn't separate from God's consciousness? What if you're just a small part of a much larger awareness? And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. What if that larger awareness, call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever you want, isn't creating things at all? What if it's just experiencing everything through different perspectives, through you, through me, through every living being? So let me ask you, is it possible that what's bigger than anything God created is the act of creation itself? Not the things that are made, but the process of being aware, of experiencing, of being conscious. Is it possible that this awareness, this ability to be part of the universe and observe it, is the biggest thing of all? All right, if you're still with me, you're probably feeling a bit dazed right now. That's good. It means we're asking the right questions. So, let's take this deeper. Consciousness. It's not a thing you can hold or touch, but it's the lens through which you experience everything. And here's the crazy part: some people believe consciousness is infinite. Not just in the sense that it can think big thoughts, but in the sense that it exists beyond time and space. Think about it. When you dream, your mind creates entire worlds. You can experience places, people, and events that don't exist in the physical world. In your mind, you can fly, you can time travel, you can break every law of physics. And yet, it feels completely real in the moment. So what if the physical world, the one we live in when we're awake, is just one layer of reality? What if there's a whole spectrum of realities that we can only access through consciousness? Now, let's take this even further. If consciousness is infinite, then it's not bound by the things that limit us in the physical world. Time, for example. We experience life in a linear way. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, but consciousness doesn't necessarily work that way. Some people believe that all moments in time exist simultaneously, and that it's only our limited perception that makes time feel like it's moving forward. If that's true, then consciousness could be like a river that flows through all of time at once. And here's where it gets even crazier: if consciousness is infinite, then it could also be everywhere at once. It could be in every point in space, experiencing every moment, every thought, every feeling, all at the same time. And that brings us to an even bigger question: if consciousness is infinite, does that mean it's bigger than God? Or does that mean that God is consciousness? And if God is consciousness, then what does that say about you? Are you just a small part of God's awareness? Or are you, in some way, the same thing as God? It's a mind bender, right? But let's think practically for a second. If consciousness is this powerful, then what does that mean for how we live our lives? Should we be focusing less on the material world, the stuff we can see and touch, and more on our inner life, our thoughts, our awareness? I mean, think about it. If consciousness is infinite, then what you're aware of right now could be just the tiniest sliver of what's possible. What if there are entire worlds, entire dimensions, that you can only access through expanding your consciousness? And if that's true, what are you waiting for? Why spend your whole life focused on things that don't really matter, when you could be exploring the infinite potential of your own mind? We've talked about the universe, we've talked about consciousness, but now let's bring it all together. What if I told you that your awareness, your ability to perceive, to think, to feel, shapes reality itself? This isn't just some abstract idea. There are actually scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders who believe that the act of observing something changes what's being observed. It's called the observer effect. In quantum physics, particles behave differently depending on whether they're being watched. Isn't that wild? Just by being aware of something, you're actually influencing it. So what does that mean for your life? It means that your consciousness, your awareness, might be the most powerful tool you have. It means that the way you choose to see the world can literally change the world. If you see life as a constant struggle, full of pain and suffering, then that's going to be your reality. But if you see life as an opportunity for growth, for connection, for joy, then that will be your reality. And here's the thing: if reality is shaped by consciousness, then the limits you think you have, the things you think you can't do, might not be real limits at all. They might just be boundaries you've created in your own mind. If you can change your awareness, you can change your life. And if enough people change their awareness, we can change the world. So, the next time you're feeling stuck, the next time you're doubting yourself or feeling like the world is against you, remember this: you're bigger than the universe. Not because of your physical size, but because you have the power of awareness. You have the ability to shape reality, to change your perception, and to experience life in infinite ways. And that, my friend, might just be bigger than anything that's ever been created. So what are you going to do with it? Now, I want to leave you with one final question. In a universe this vast, with consciousness this powerful, what's stopping you from becoming the person you were always meant to be? All right, so we've gotten to this point where you're probably thinking, okay, I get it. Consciousness is powerful. It's infinite. But what does that mean for me on a practical level? And I get it. I mean, all this talk about the universe, God, and consciousness can feel really abstract, right? But here's where it gets real, where it actually starts to make sense for your everyday life. You see, most of us live our lives thinking that we're bound by all sorts of limitations. We think we're limited by time, by our circumstances, by our past, by what other people expect of us. We look at the world and think, this is just how things are. But what if the way we see the world is actually creating those limitations? What if most of the limits we believe in are just illusions? Think about it. You've probably had moments in your life where you felt stuck, like nothing was ever going to change. But then something shifted, maybe your mindset, maybe your perspective, and suddenly, what seemed impossible became possible. That's not a coincidence. That's consciousness at work. Let's dig into this a bit more. If consciousness is the lens through which we experience reality, then it's also the filter that shapes what's possible for us. And just like a camera lens, you can adjust the focus. You can zoom out and see the bigger picture, or you can zoom in and get stuck on the small details. A lot of us live life zoomed in. We're focused on the problems right in front of us, the challenges, the frustrations. We're so caught up in the noise that we forget to step back and see the bigger view. But here's the thing: the moment you choose to shift that focus, when you decide to step back and look at life from a wider perspective, you start to realize that the things holding you back aren't as solid as they seem. Let's break this down even further. If your awareness shapes reality, then that means you're not just reacting to life, you're creating it. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, they're all contributing to the reality you experience. This isn't just some new age philosophy. There's actual science behind it. Take, for example, the placebo effect. People who believe they're getting treatment for an illness, even if they're only taking a sugar pill, sometimes get better. Why? Because their belief creates a physical response in their body. Their consciousness literally changes their biology. Now, if that can happen with something as measurable as health, imagine what could happen in other areas of your life, your relationships, your career, your sense of purpose. But let me ask you this: what beliefs are you holding on to right now that might be keeping you from experiencing a bigger reality? What stories are you telling yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, or what's possible for you? And more importantly, are those stories true? Or are they just limitations you've accepted without questioning them? Here's a practical example. Let's say you've always believed you're not good at something. Maybe it's public speaking, or starting a business, or even just being happy. You've told yourself, that's just not me. I'm not that kind of person. But is that really true? Or is it just a belief you've carried around for so long that it feels true? What if you could shift your awareness, change the story, and suddenly unlock a new version of yourself that you didn't even know existed. Now, I'm not saying that just thinking differently is going to magically solve all your problems, but what I am saying is that your awareness, your consciousness, is the starting point for any real, lasting change. If you want to experience a different reality, you have to start by seeing things differently. You have to start by believing that a different reality is possible. So now that we've established the power of consciousness, let's talk about the next big piece of the puzzle: choice. This is where things get really interesting. You see, if consciousness is infinite, if it's the thing that shapes our reality, then the choices you make with that consciousness are incredibly powerful. And that's not just in the small, everyday decisions. I'm talking about the big, existential choices, the choices about how you want to live, who you want to be, and how you want to experience life. Here's the thing: a lot of people don't realize that they have a choice. They think life just happens to them, that they're stuck in a certain role or a certain situation. But every single moment, you have the power to choose. And I'm not just talking about choosing what to have for breakfast or what TV show to watch. I'm talking about choosing how you respond to life's challenges, choosing what kind of energy you bring into the world, and choosing what kind of future you want to create for yourself. Let's break this down. Imagine you're in a tough situation. Maybe you've lost your job, or you're going through a breakup, or you're dealing with some kind of personal failure. Most people would look at that situation and think, well, this sucks. Life is against me. There's nothing I can do. But here's where the power of choice comes in. You can either choose to see that situation as the end of the road, or you can choose to see it as a new beginning. You can choose to let it define you, or you can choose to redefine yourself through it. And that choice, how you decide to frame the situation, has a massive impact on what happens next. Think about it like this: every time you make a choice, you're sending out a ripple into the universe. And those ripples come back to you in ways you can't even predict. The energy you put out, the thoughts you think, the actions you take, they all create a chain reaction that shapes your future. This isn't just some law of attraction stuff. It's real. Your choices determine your path, and the path you're on determines where you end up. But here's the catch: making the right choice isn't always easy. It requires awareness. It requires you to step outside of your automatic reactions and really think about what kind of life you want to create. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, to react to life instead of choosing how to respond. But the more you practice conscious choice, the more you actively decide how you want to live, the more power you have over your reality. And this brings us back to the original question: what's bigger than anything God created? Could it be the act of creation itself? Could it be the fact that you, as a conscious being, have the power to shape your reality through your choices? And if that's true, then what does that say about the nature of life? About the nature of God? Could it be that the real miracle isn't just the universe itself, but the fact that you, in this moment, have the power to create, just like God? So now we're at the final stretch. We've talked about consciousness, we've talked about choice, and now we're faced with the ultimate question: what are you going to do with the rest of your life? You've been given this incredible gift, the gift of awareness, the gift of free will, the gift of being able to create your own reality. But what are you going to do with it? Here's the thing: no one else can answer that question for you. You're the only one who knows what kind of life you truly want to live. You're the only one who can decide what matters to you, what you're willing to fight for, and what you're willing to let go of. But what I can tell you is this: the moment you realize how powerful your consciousness is, how much impact your choices have, you'll never look at life the same way again. You'll stop playing small. You'll stop letting fear and doubt hold you back. You'll stop believing that you're stuck or that life is something that happens to you. Instead, you'll start to see life as something you're actively creating every single day. And when you realize that, everything changes. So I'll leave you with this final thought: what's bigger than anything God created? Maybe, just maybe, it's you. Not you as a physical being, but you as a conscious, creative force. You, with the power to shape, to choose, to create. So what kind of reality are you going to create? How are you going to use this incredible gift of consciousness to live the life you were always meant to live? The choice is yours. Now, go make it count.